So let's start with a little bit of review. At the very beginning, we told you that y equals 2 to the x was exponential growth. And if this 2 had been like a 3, it would be even faster growth. I also told you that if we made this like 1/2, that would be not growth, but decay. The growth kind, of course, goes up, 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 up. The decay kind, of course, doesn't. It goes down, 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 down. And it's slowly getting closer and closer to this, but it will never touch it. Because, like, let's say that you had $1 million and then you spend half of it, and then you spend half of it, and then you spend half of it, and then you spend half of it. You get closer and closer to zero, but you technically would never hit zero. I know at the end it gets ludicrous because you had like $1 and then it goes down to 50 cents and then, okay, but you never hit zero. All right, so that's exponential growth and decay. Then we gave you some that had some moves in them, like y equals 2 to the x plus 3, and then there's a negative in the front also. Can you tell me the two transformations? Like it goes this way and that way. The negative and the plus 3 are your two key things. Do you know which way they go? Take a second, write them down. Do you remember high-vo? High stands for horizontal on inside. High-vo. That's a horizontal move. So if you said left or right, at least you were doing horizontal. Which one is it, though? Plus 3, is that left or right? That's left. Left 3. How about this one? It was on our last test. Vertical, reflect, very good. Now, make me 3 points that work. You can take any number you want. So I said make the inside small. Because see, if you like stick in 5 here, you're going to have to do 2 to the 8th. Next, be really careful that you do this part first, inside the red box first, and then you stick the negative on it. That's a really common mistake. Kids come in thinking that you take -2 and put it to the power of. Nope, you don't. You put 2 to the power, and then you make it negative. Henry, tell me a number you stuck in.
I put -4 in.
-4. All right. I'm going to try it. Then that means 2 to the power of -1. Do you know what 2 to the power of -1 is?
1/2.
Ooh, you're right. And then you put the negative on it, so it'd be -1/2. His point worked. It was tricky, but it worked. I probably would have stuck to 3, -3, I mean, because then the power is just 0. And do you guys remember when you have power of 0? What's that? 1. And then you stick the negative on it. -1. A lot of people goof that up. They're like, you said anything to the 0 is 1. So I thought the whole thing was 1. No, I also told you that you have to do this first and put the negative on last. All right, and then let's do -2. -2 plus 3 is 1. 2 to the 1 is 2. And then you make it negative last. -2. There's your points. Raise your hand if you had some points. Okay, good. Now, you might use other points. You know, you could have put in like 0. It would have worked. 2 to the 3rd is 8. And then it would be -8. 0, -8 would have been a good point. All right. Then, if I actually need to graph this sucker, I'm going to graph it just... You can watch. Wait, I just did it wrong. -4, -1/2. -3, -1, -2, -2, and it curves like that. Oh, that's right. There's an asymptote it's trying to get close to. Did you remember to put the asymptote in? Would you have remembered that? All right. And the key points, I'm going to make them blue so they really pop. Okay. You have to have 3 points in the asymptote. there's a review so far. Then, yesterday I told you about interest. Here's an example of an interest. You've got $5,000 because you worked really hard one summer and you saved up $5,000 from it. My daughter had one summer like that where she worked at a restaurant as a food runner, and she got a portion of the tips, and she made good money that summer. She worked super hard. She'd actually come home and like lay on the floor, just like somebody had like knocked her out or something. She just, because she was so exhausted from working so hard. But she would make really good money on the tips. So let's say you invest that at 4% and you do it for 3 years. Does this ring a bell? Do you remember doing this yesterday? Okay. Now watch how I change it so that it's new for today. It's going to be very similar, but it's going to be different. Remember what these were. This is called the principal. That's an official sounding name. It's also called the start value. That's the rate. That's the years. And all of that stays the same for today, but it gets a little more complicated. Do you get that in the real world, a lot of times when you do things with money, it's monthly. You have monthly payments. You pay monthly for your car. You pay monthly for your rent. You pay monthly for buying a house. So if you want to do the problem in monthly, which is pretty realistic, then you got to add this. Right here, you divide just the 4, divide by 12 to make it monthly. And then you times this by 12. And what really happens then is you get 1/12 of your interest every month. See, you don't get the whole 4% every month. You get 4% divided by 12. You get your monthly interest, you get it once in a month, and you only get 1/12 of it. And then they give that to you 12 times. And so if I just left the 3 up here, then it wouldn't be in months. So I got to times it by 12, and that makes 36 months of that. See? All right. So do you get that the red 12s are the only new thing? Otherwise, it's literally yesterday, except the formula got more complicated. All right. And if you were going to put it in a calculator, don't yet, but if you were going to, you would type 1 plus 0.04, and you don't need to put that in parentheses. Let me explain why. Some people want to put this in parentheses, and you're wasting your time because this part here will be done first by your calculator, because your calculator knows that divide comes before add. The calculator is programmed with those rules. So as long as you type it in exactly how you see it here, the divide will happen first, because you're not going to get 4% every month. You're going to get 4% divided by 12 every month. All right, so that's how you type that part in, and then you go 3 times 12, which you can just type in a calculator. Your calculator knows how to do 3 times 12. If you want to do it in your head and put 36, you can. But you can put that in the power, and the calculator will know, oh, you want me to times 3 times 12, and put it there. All right, now the only hard part, honestly, is remembering the formula and then putting it in the calculator. So let's just try this one. See if you can carefully put exactly that in the calculator, hit enter, and you'll either have done it right or you won't. Let's make sure you get how to put it in. Take a second, type this in exactly in your calculator. Get your calculator up there, I can't see. Oh, it's just really tiny, okay. Anyways. So now, this was growth, right? The 5,000 is growing because we're earning interest on it. And Is your answer more than 5,000? Well, then you're probably, well, I hope it is. It should be more than 5,000 because you're gaining interest. You put it in, they give you 4,000, compounded monthly. You do that for 3 times 12 is 36 months, which is like 3 years. And you should definitely have more than $5,000 in there. Is it like 6,000 and something? All right. Everybody compare your answer with the person next to you. See what you got. I didn't get enough. I shouldn't have said 6,000. It's not enough interest. It's probably 5,000.
Oh my god.
5636? You get 5636?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Now, they're not always monthly. You'd think that like when you pay your property taxes that it's monthly. Nope. You can pay your property taxes what's called semi-annually, twice a year. That means 2 times a year you write a check. Here's my property taxes. For some people it really sucks. Like if you live on Lake Minnetonka, which I know people are going to be like, oh, they're rich and it doesn't, they have tons of money. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just stretch to buy that house and barely could afford it. And all of a sudden now they got to pay their property taxes. And it can be like $30,000 that they have to write the check to the government for $30,000 for having property on the lake because it's worth more, so they charge you more. All right, so moral of the story here is that you pay your taxes not monthly. So we got to change this 12. And usually taxes for, if you're a small business and you're paying your let's say income tax in this case, you pay that quarterly, which is 4 times a year. Then you just change this to a 4. All right, so quarterly, I wrote these on the board. You see where it says quarterly is 4? Annually means once a year. Monthly, of course, means 12. Semi-annually means twice a year. I've had all of those in my life. Sometimes I have to pay things quarterly. That's my taxes for my small businesses. I got 2 businesses. We have an insurance agency and a ACT company. And then annually, I have to pay some taxes once a year. And monthly, all my bills for like my electric bill and my cable bill and my internet bill, that's all monthly. Semi-annually, that twice a year. Property taxes, twice a year.
Really?
Yep.
I always thought it's annually.
So it depends. You can pay them annually and you could pay them semi-annually. It's like a choice.
Oh, okay.
And so I choose that option. So my point is just these are all real world. I actually have had experienced all of these. And so you just have to change this number on the bottom here where I put a 12. Sometimes it's a 4 if it's quarterly. Sometimes it's a 2 if it's semi-annually. The word semi means 2. Like a semi-sphere is like a sphere divided into 2. All right. Hemisphere is half of a sphere. All right. So anyway, bottom line, if you can set this next one up using this formula that I wrote on the board, and I will, for the people at home, you can't see on the board, but here's the formula. You take your start amount, and then you multiply by 1 plus the annual rate. That gets confusing. You're like, I thought you said it was quarterly. Yeah, it could be annual rate divided by quarterly. The top one is the annual rate. Always put the annual rate there, and it gets divided up by different ends. And then the n is also up here, so these 2 ends are exactly the same. And then I'm going to put a y right here, because to me that makes sense. That's years. It could be any variable you want right there, but... Okay, so there's the formula. Now let me tell you a story. You make the equation first, and then you put it in your calculator. Don't touch the calculator until you've written it out. Okay, so here's your story. Your great-grandma, who you had heard had gotten sick. You hear she passed away. And great grandma, turns out that she had invested, even though she was a custodian at a school and had made lots of money, your great grandma had invested money her whole life. She had put some money in stocks, and she'd gotten pretty lucky in the stocks she picked. And she had picked some really good ones, like Apple. When it first came out, Apple wasn't like super popular, but it turned out to be a really big company at the end. She also picked some little known stocks like Tesla, which at first was just a tiny little electric car company everybody thought would die because making a car company is really hard to do. And she bought some, and this is actually my Aunt Marge, by the way. It's a true story. She bought little bit of 3M company. You guys know what that stands for? Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, but that's from Minnesota. And it turned out to be a huge company later. So anyway, and she passed away and she left a bunch of money. And it wasn't tons of money in my real life scenario, but she had a fair amount of money. And at the end of her life, she had certain causes that she wanted to support. And so she had us in the will. It said, I want you to give this much money to like this organization that helps save whales. She was into whales, so she wanted to save the whales. And then she left a little bit of money to each person in the family. So I'm going to tell you, here's your numbers that I want you to do. Now, this did not happen in the real world, but imagine for a minute that Aunt Marge, my aunt, had left $1 million. She didn't have that much, but imagine she did. That was the starting amount. So now you can put that in your equation. $1 million. And here's her rules, though, to her family. You can put up anything in the will. The will can say, you have to do this with it. So here's her, but you have to invest it in something aggressive, because that's what she did. So she says, I want to teach you guys something in her will. I want you to invest it at 15% and not touch it for 20 years and get it compounded monthly. Now, I just told you all the numbers that go in there. I'm going to say them again. She started with $1 million that she left to her family, and she wants you to get an annual rate of 15% because she says invest it in these things. Those are aggressive, and they'll probably grow by 15% per year. And I want you to do this monthly. That's the end, by the way. And then I want you to not touch it for 20 years. Once you've got your formula set up, you could type it all in the calculator, and you'll see that that money will be worth a lot more than $1 million. The sucky part is you have to wait 20 years, but 20 years later, all of a sudden there's this huge pile of money that you get to divide up in the family. You don't put commas in the calculator, of course, but I'm putting them so you can see that that's 1 million plus 0.15 for your interest divided by 12, because she said to make it compound monthly, which you can do. And then that, how many years did she say? 20. And don't forget to times by that same n, which is 12. There you go. Now, put that in your calculator. Would you please check with the kid next to you, see if you get the same thing? Did you get a number that started at 197, 154, 93? And I'm going to do it to the penny only because your homework has to be done to the penny. Like, it's a dumb Schoology quiz kind of thing where it doesn't know better than if you just leave off the last two there, it's gonna mark it wrong. Okay, you got to have the pennies. Now, I want you to process this. There was $1 million. Now there's 19 million that you get to split up as a family. Now, the hard part is getting the 15%, but again, she was a pretty genius investor, and she said, put it in this, and then I think it'll grow 15%. And so, if it actually does, look at that result. Okay, so moral of the story. Do you know how to put numbers in this formula and put them in your calculator? Because if you got 19,715,493.52, I think you get it for today. Raise your hand if you got that one right. Okay, good. Done. It's a Schoology quiz. Let's do the first question together. And it's weirdly got a password. Open up the Schoology quiz for today. It looks different than normal because it is different than normal. And get there now, please. Max, let me shake his desk a little bit. There we go, he's with. Okay, gotta type in the password. If you don't know the password, I'm gonna tell you right now. Okay. Find the homework for today. Raise your hand if you're on it and ready to put in the password. That's less than half the class. So be patient for a second. Come on. Find the homework. Since I do not need a super secure password, take a wild guess at the beginning of it. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4. But then, very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, A. Well, it's on the board. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, A is the password. It has to be a capital A, by the way. They did a study one time of like what people's passwords were, and a ton of people's password was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like tons of people use that password. And obviously, not real smart if it's anything super important. Who cares if my Schoology quiz gets hacked? But if it's your bank account, you don't want to have your password be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, A. Now let's do this first problem. Let's see. Osano, can you tell me what the starting amount is on this problem? 1,500. And then everybody always puts 1 plus. And then, what percent? 0.04 then. Don't forget it's not 0.4, it's 0.04. Is it monthly, Osano?
No.
What is it?
2 years.
2 times per year?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm putting a 2 here. Or wait a minute. Do you mean 2 years or do you mean 2?
2 years.
Oh.
I think it's quarterly.
Oh, it says quarterly. So then what's my number that goes in here and here?
12.
No, quarterly is not 12. Quarterly is 4. 4 times a year is quarterly. So you put a 4 here and a 4 here. And then, how many years, Osano, again? 2. There. And our final answer has to be to the penny. And please, don't put a $sign in or it will mark it wrong. You can put commas, and you don't have to put commas. If you want to save some time, don't have to put commas. All right. And this one. Let's use the dice of destiny. Choose somebody. Type it in now. All we're doing is typing that right there. And you calculate it. And it's row 6, person 3, Claire, that's you. Haven't typed it yet? Oh, 12,000 doesn't feel right. Anybody else have a 12,000 start? No. Okay, so type it in again. Are you ready? What? Okay, so it's not 12,000 though. Okay, so we're going to type it in again. Because what I'm trying to do is prevent anybody from just reading off a wrong answer, so I'll move on. So you're gonna type in 1,500, and then a parenthesis, and then a 1 plus, and then a 0.04 slash 4, and then an end parenthesis, and then you can put 2 times 4 here, or you could just do 8. It's probably a little safer to do an 8 there. Now what'd you get?
1,624.
1 6 what?
1,624.
24 point. Remember the it's all the way to the penny. 0.29. All right, there you go. That's correct. I'm not sure what you did wrong the first time, but that one's right. 1624.29. Comma is optional. All right, you got one done. There, go just like that. If you didn't understand that, look up on the board. This is how the formula is supposed to go. If you're not getting it, please come up and ask me. If you're not sure what a word means like quarterly, it's up there on the board. Quarterly means 4 times. Monthly is 12. Semi-annually is 2. All right. And that's all I got for you for today.